In response to a lot of my recent DMs, they've kind of all been focused around ERAS, how to fill it out, what goes where, how to word things, and just things like that. So I decided to create this video, kind of informally taking you guys through the application, just some tips and tricks on how to fill it out, and just kind of showing you what goes where and how it works. So unfortunately, I think it would be extremely beneficial for me to show you guys the screen and just kind of move the mouse and talk about the ERAS application and take you guys through it that way. 2020 applicants did have their passwords discontinued on May 31st, so I no longer have access and I can't share the screen with you guys. So I'm just gonna have to talk and take you guys through it that way. But hopefully this clears up a lot of the questions that you guys had and makes filling out this ERAS application during this weird cycle a little bit less stressful. So given that the application looks like it has every year in the past, basically what you're going to see when you first log in is your dashboard. And on your dashboard, you're going to see 3 different columns. The column on the left is going to be the application, and under that is going to be listed all of the things you need to complete for the actual application. The middle column is going to be your documents. So underneath that is going to be listed all of the things like personal statement, letters of recommendation, MSP, etc. The column all the way on the right is going to be programs, and this is where you can see what programs you have saved and what programs you have decided to apply to. So we'll start with application and we'll go through that section and all of the different components of the column. So the first thing is going to be your personal information. You enter your name, you enter your address, just personal details like that. The second part is going to be the educational information. So you can enter your undergraduate institution and credentials, your medical school, credentials, and then if you did a master's program or a post-bac, you can enter these here as well. The next section is going to be the membership and honorary and professional societies. So this can be a little bit confusing because you kind of want to just put anything here, any type of organization you're involved in, but that's not necessarily what this is for. This is going to be for things like if you are a member of an honor society. For example, if you go to SGU, IEA, Iota Epsilon Alpha is their honor society, that would go here. If you're a member of the Gold Humanism Honor Society or some other type of honor society, all of this is going to go in this section. The other thing that will go in this section as well is going to be if you belong to an organization of any of the specialties. So for example, I was in ACP, American College of Physicians, medical student member. So I put this in that section because it is a professional society. If you are part of IFMSA or something like that, this will also likely go in that section as well. The next thing is going to be medical student awards or medical school awards. And so this is going to be if you made the dean's list or if you got, I know at SGU they have the White Coat Award, things like that are going to go in this section. Even if you were a nominee for something, I think that warrants going in this section as well. For example, I didn't win the White Coat Award at SGU, but I was a nominee for it. So I put White Coat Award nominee in my medical school awards along with Dean's List, Chancellor's List, whatever they call it at your school, you can put that in this section. And any other awards, if you got them for research or whatever, you can put these in your medical school awards as well. But keep in mind, it is reserved strictly for medical school awards. There is an other awards section that we'll get to in a little bit. So the next section is going to be your certifications and licensures. So if you practice in your home country because you're an IMG and now you're coming to the United States and you have some type of medical license, this is where you're going to put that. Likewise, if you practice in the United States in one specialty and you are now applying for the match in a different specialty and you have a license, this is where you're going to put that as well. For those of you who are applying for the match for the first time, this is where you're going to put your certifications like BLS, ACLS, PALS, all of those. The next thing is going to be volunteer experiences. So this is where I start to get a lot of questions, and even myself found myself very confused last year. So volunteer experiences, you want to put a lot, but you don't want to put too many. You want to fluff up your application, of course, so that it stands out, but you also don't want to overfluff it because keep in mind, program directors do have like 3,000 of these to read to decide who they're going to interview. So if you have 600 volunteer experiences listed, they're going to get bored. So the first thing you should definitely include is if you did any volunteer or community outreach that's relevant to medicine, obviously put that on the application. That should be the first things that go down. So then from there, you can decide things that you're passionate about. So for example, I do a lot of road racing volunteers. So while I didn't put down every single road race that I ever volunteered at because the list would be super long, I chose one or two that I really enjoyed or I volunteered at the most, and I put those on the application. So you really have to use your judgment on what to put on the application, because you can put things from undergrad, but you have to be smart about it. So for example, I was required to do so much community service in undergrad for being an athlete through compliance. So I have a ton of volunteer activities from undergrad. However, not all of these were overly relevant, and they're also like kind of old, and they're not necessarily something I would want to be asked about on interviews, because some of them I kind of forgot about. So pick wisely. If you guys have any questions, I know this is actually kind of hard to explain. So if you guys have any questions about whether or not it's something you should include, please feel free to just message me, and I'll kind of give you my best insight on whether or not you should include it. Also, with the volunteer experiences, it's going to ask you to list the organization, possibly a person who led the organization, the dates you performed the activity, and then it's also going to ask you for a short description. So I found on a blog somewhere last year about how to write the description for the volunteer experiences, and this is something that I think was very helpful, and I really liked this advice, so I'm going to share it with you guys too. So really, it should be about 3 sentences that you have for the description for your volunteer activity. The first sentence is going to include kind of what the activity or the volunteer experience was. The second sentence, you're going to want to include what skills you used and what your duties for that specific experience were. And then the third sentence just talks about very briefly how those skills that you acquire during that volunteer experience are going to benefit you as a physician, or how that experience enriched your life and now is going to shape your life as a physician. So just kind of make a short sentence on that at the end, and I think it really helps top it off and make it stand out a little bit more. Obviously, these descriptions can be more than 3 sentences long, but keep in mind, even though you want them to be specific and stand out, you also want them to be concise. So try not to make things wordy, have someone read over them, and just make sure they're as concise as possible. And so the next section is work experiences, and that's going to be very similar to volunteer experience. So it's going to ask you for the place that you worked. It's going to ask you probably who your boss was. It's going to ask you for the dates that you worked there, and it's going to ask you for a short description. And I chose to write the descriptions for my work experiences very similarly to the way I wrote my volunteer experiences. So the first sentence being a description of the job, the second sentence being a description of my duties, and the third sentence being how those skills or how that job is going to translate into me being a better physician in the future. Again, this is very similar to volunteer experiences, because you are going to want to pick and choose what you put here. So use your best judgment. I'm also going to share an example of mine just so you guys, I guess, kind of get the gist of it. So my first job was a lifeguard for 2 years. My second job was a server for 5 years. My third job was doing some clinical research with reading EKGs. And now I'm applying for being a resident physician. So when I was filling out the application, I decided to include lifeguarding because 1, it is medically relevant, and 2, it shows that I was interested in medicine and got involved at a younger age. 2, I did not choose to include being a server, even though it was my longest standing job, and it also gives you many skills, especially for communication, that definitely contribute to you being a good physician. I just chose not to include it. It was old. It was when I was in high school and when I was in college. And it was old enough and not relevant enough that I chose to exclude it. Whereas lifeguarding was older, but it's also relevant. So that's just sort of how I decided what I chose to include and what I chose to exclude. The next section, similar to volunteer and work experiences, is going to be your research experiences. So the format is exactly the same. It asks you for the dates. It asks you for like the company / organization. It asks you for the person overseeing your research, and then it asks you for a short description. So I don't think I need to go through that again. It's more or less the same. The next section is going to be publications. They have a format that you can use to put in your publication. So I had a case report, so the format may be a little bit different than if you had like a poster published, or if you had like a longitudinal study or something published, the formats might vary a little bit. So this is something I would recommend looking up online. So the next section is going to be your other awards/accomplishments. So this section kind of gives you the freedom to share anything that you might have been successful in outside of medical school. Because if it were medical school awards, it would have gone in the section that we discussed earlier up above. So again, you have to be mindful of how much you're putting here. There is a character limit for other awards/accomplishments because otherwise people would probably go on forever. So you can only pick a few. If you guys need a personal example, I obviously in undergrad, I had a lot of athletic awards. I chose 2 or 3 that were very, special to me. I was Under Armour Athlete of the Week once, and I was a conference medalist for my event. So I chose to put both of these awards in this section. I didn't go on and list every single award I've ever gotten because it's not necessary. Just those 2 alone, I think, attest to my work ethic outside of medicine and show that I'm passionate, about something else. It showed that I was successful in what I chose to do outside of medicine as well. So you don't need a long list of things just to prove to them that you were successful in something else. Some other things that could go here are Dean's List from your undergraduate. This will show then that you had long-term academic excellence. So if that's something you want to include there as well, feel free. If you did a master's program and you won a research award there, you can put that there as well. Whereas if you won a research award in medical school, that's going to go in your medical school awards instead. The next section of the application and the final section in the application section of the dashboard is muy importante. And medical students tend to brush over this all the time because they think that it is the least important part of the application when actually it's one of the most important parts. And that's the hobbies section. So there's a few things I want to touch on in regards to filling out the hobbies section. So first of all, what should you choose? So you're going to want to choose things that you are knowledgeable about. You're going to be asked about these on, I would say, every single interview. And most of the time, half of your interview is going to be you talking about your hobbies. So you don't want to be asked about gardening when you put it on there so that you could stand out when you know nothing about gardening, because you're going to have to talk about that for 4 months and that's going to suck. It's going to be embarrassing. So pick things you're knowledgeable about. Second, pick things that you are extremely passionate about. Like I said, this is one way that you can make your application stand out without doing any research, without taking an exam, without doing any extracurricular activities. So put down things that you are very passionate about. Even if you don't think that they're interesting, someone will find them interesting. I promise you. Someone will find your interests also interesting. Even if someone doesn't find them interesting, they might say, hey, every resident in our program likes to do this hobby too. This person would make a great fit, and you might get an interview based solely off the fact that you have a similar interest to the residents. The third thing I want to say is select smart. There is a character limit for the hobbies section on the ERAS application because it is meant to help you stand out a little bit and share a little bit about yourself outside of medicine, and people would take advantage of this and continue to fluff it up and fluff it up and fluff it up with hobbies. So there is a character limit and you do have to select wisely. So pick the things that you know the best, pick the things that you're most passionate about, and you should be set. For writing down your hobbies, you have a few options. You could list 8, 10 different things and separate them by commas or put one on each line or however you want to separate them. But I think the best thing to do, and I think this is some of the best advice I've gotten off of a blog last year, was to be specific. So what I chose to do instead was write a short description being very specific about what my hobby was. Let me give you an example. So for reading, say you love reading. What do you like reading? You could put reading dash with a preference for historical and science fiction. You like reading historical fiction, you like reading science fiction better than anything else. You may like reading other things, but this is going to help them carry out better conversations with you during interviews. And it also makes you stand out a little bit more because you're telling them exactly what you like about reading. You're not just being generic. Obviously, like I said, there is a character count, so this can take up some space. So the approach I took was grouping my hobbies. I'm sure everybody who's watching this knows that I like athletics and running and lifting weights and stuff like that. So what I did was, instead of putting running, basketball, soccer, I put athletics dash running, because I like running the most. In parentheses, I was more descriptive with running. I put former Division I hurdler, now has transitioned to half marathons and triathlons, and parenthesis. And then I also put comma basketball, comma soccer, in parentheses recreational. For the next activity, I'm going to use this as an example because I think a lot of people in Grenada get scuba certified and they're not really sure where to put it on their application. And this is one way you can incorporate it. So the next hobby I chose was outdoor activities. That's what I wrote, outdoor activities. And then I put dash, hiking, comma, skiing, comma, scuba diving, and then in parentheses, PADI level 2 certified. So that shows that you are actually very interested in scuba diving and you are certified in some way. There are many things you can do this with. I'm just giving you personal examples since I can't physically walk you through the application. And then I think I also put scrapbooking. I didn't really describe scrapbooking because there's really nothing to describe. But for things that you can describe, like, oh, you like watching movies. What type of movies do you like watching? Do you like watching action movies? Do you like watching documentaries? Do you like watching rom-coms? Like, put in parentheses whatever you're interested in. Moving on to the next column of the ERAS application, which is the documents section. I think the first thing that's listed is photograph, and I have been getting some questions on this recently about what my photograph, should look like. So I'll kind of go through that really quick. Obviously, you want to have a plain background. You don't want to have like flowers and stuff in the background. It takes away from you. That's just basic photography. You want to be dressed nice. So whether you choose a suit jacket and a shirt, or like a suit jacket and a dress, or a suit and tie for guys, whatever you choose, you want it to be business casual. And you want the shot to be from chest up, and you obviously want good lighting. No, you don't have to actually get these professionally taken. I have plenty of friends who use the portrait mode on their iPhone and they match into great programs. So no, you don't have to get them professionally taken. Just make sure you have good lighting, you look nice, and you have a plain background and it's chest up instead of a full body shot. So that's really all that's required. Pro tip for my IMGs, download the My ECFMG app, because if you upload your picture through the app, it is way clearer than if you upload it on the computer. It can be a little grainy. It's also way slower on the computer and way faster on the app. So I recommend uploading it through there instead. The next section, I think, of the documents is like my ECFMG report or my ECFMG status or something like that. Obviously, I don't really know what this is. Just know that if you go to SGU, at least your school will take care of it, because I don't really know what this is, but they uploaded it for me and it was fantastic. The next part is the MSPE/Dean's letter. They're often known as the same thing nowadays. In terms of uploading it, for SGU students at the very least, your MSPE coordinator will upload this for you, so you don't have to worry about it. They know you're applying, they wrote the letter, they took the time to write the letter, so they know to upload it. Traditionally, these were released to programs on the 1st of October. This year, it's going to be a little bit different. Programs will have access to the application as well as the Dean's letter all at the same time. So I still wouldn't worry. SGU at least will have it uploaded. Mine was uploaded 2 weeks in advance of the October 1st date. So again, I wouldn't really worry about it, even though everything is pushed back a little bit this year. They'll take care of it for you. If you are experiencing a delay in this and you're wondering where yours is and it's not uploaded, contact your MSPE coordinator. That'll be your main point of contact. The next section is your medical school transcripts, which again are also uploaded with your Dean's letter by your MSPE coordinator. So these are usually released at the same time, and you'll be able to see that they were both uploaded usually on the same day. So again, not to worry, but if you do have any questions, reach out to your MSPE coordinator. The last section of this is your USMLE transcript. And so this is going to be your step 1, your step 2 CK. And if you have your step 2 CS scores this year, that's where your transcripts for those will go as well. You cannot pay for the application without paying for your transcripts being sent to ERAS, so don't worry about it, but it is 80 extra bucks on top of the rest of the application. So just know that they're going to charge you 80 bucks in addition to the programs you apply to at the end to have your transcripts sent. I think it takes about 48 hours for them to get the transcripts from USMLE to your ERAS application. So obviously those documents were pretty straightforward. So the last two are going to be the ones where people have a little trouble, and it's also a little bit confusing. So pay attention to this part. The next thing is going to be your personal statement. So when you upload your personal statement, next to your personal statement, it is going to tell you unassigned or assigned. So when you first upload your personal statement, it's going to say personal statement, unassigned, with a 1 in parentheses, meaning you have one personal statement that you've uploaded to ERAS, but you have not assigned it to any program, which is why it's called unassigned. So once you assign this to at least one program, it will change the status from unassigned to assigned. So just keep in mind that you do need to assign your personal statements to programs. Just because you upload it to ERAS, you are not done. If you have two personal statements because you're applying for a backup specialty, make sure that you're assigning the right personal statements to the right programs. For example, if you're applying for neurology with a family medicine backup, make sure that your neurology personal statement is being assigned to the neurology programs, and make sure that your family medicine personal statement is being assigned to the family medicine programs, or else you will not be getting interviews because it's not a good look. So the last section of the documents section is the letters of recommendation. And this is very similar to personal statement in the sense that you have to assign them. So first things first, how do you even request letters of recommendation? So when you get your ERAS login, there will be letter of recommendation request forms that you can send from ERAS directly to your attendings. Once the attending receives this and has the letter written, they will upload it at the link that you sent them, and it will appear on your dashboard. The other thing that they might do is send you the letter and have you upload it. The difference between these is that for the attendings who upload the letter themselves, you can waive your right to see it, saying, I've never seen this letter. I don't want to see this letter unless you tell me about it on an interview. I don't know what this letter says. If the attending sends you the letter to upload, you cannot waive your right to see it. So programs know then that you saw the letter. And I just think that it looks a little better if you waive your right to see it, because I think it seems sketchy if you know what all of your letters say. So obviously this can't be controlled. Some attendings will really just send you the letter and you'll have to upload it. But I don't think it makes a huge difference, but I think it does look a little better if you waive your right to see them. So that's how you get your letters of recommendation uploaded. Again, if you upload them, they're going to show up on your dashboard. It's going to say you upload 4 letters unassigned, meaning you have to go in and assign them to programs. If you just have them on ERAS and they say unassigned, programs don't get them. You have to go through and individually assign them. So you can assign up to 4 letters to each program. You cannot assign more than 4 to each program. So if you have 7 letters and you want to just do it the easy way and apply them all to every program, you can't do that. So if you're applying again for a backup specialty, make sure that you're, sending the letters to the right programs, because if I remember correctly, you can, once you assign them, you can't unassign them from programs. I'm pretty sure. The other thing is, if you are an IMG, your letters have to go through ECFMG before they go through ERAS. You don't have to do anything different. You still just send the ERAS link to your attendings. They'll upload it. The processing just takes a little bit longer. So it takes 48 hours for ERAS to upload them. So that's only 2 days. That's not bad. But ECFMG takes up to 2 weeks to approve them. So try and make sure that your letter writers have the letters in on time. Obviously this year it's going to be a struggle because people are just going back to rotations. They're going to be getting letters late. I think programs probably know that. But if you have letters from prior rotations before the pandemic, try and get those in as soon as possible, because when ECFMG is not busy, the processing is a lot faster. So keep that in mind. Again, I know this year is going to be very different. People are just going back into the hospitals now, so they're really going to be cramming for letters of recommendation. So just something to, keep in mind as you go along. But please, if you take anything away from this, assign your letters. Don't let them stay unassigned where the programs are not going to get them. And so the last section of your dashboard, which is all the way on the right, is your programs section of the dashboard. And this is very straightforward. I just really wanted to point out that just because you save programs doesn't mean you're applying to them. So you have two options. As you're starting to go through programs and deciding where you want to apply, you can click Save Program. And this just means that you're saving them to a list that you will eventually apply to. You can still delete from this list. It doesn't mean you are applying. Trust me, you'll know when you pay the hefty fee that you're applying. And you don't have to pay to save programs. You just click Save. It helps you build a list and kind of start tailoring down the places you want to apply to. And then from the saved list is where you will apply to your program. So that's just something I wanted to point out. Overall, the ERAS application is extremely user-friendly. It's pretty straightforward and it's actually very easy to fill out. I think a lot of people's confusion and stress comes from a similar place as to where mine came from, which is trying to figure out what to include, what not to include, what's important, what's not important, and just trying to figure out what fits under what section the best. So if you guys have any questions about what you should include or not include, or if you just need my opinion, feel free to reach out. But otherwise, good luck. You guys will be in my shoes soon enough. I'm very excited for you guys. It's going to be a very weird application cycle, but I'm excited to see how it goes, and I'm excited to see you guys on the other side.